Today's conversation goes straight into the heart of what so many high-achieving men quietly wrestle with: the performance trap, the pressure to fix, and the deeply human fear that if we stop performing, we might lose everything. My guest, transformational coach Thomas Blottenberger, invites us into a radically honest exploration of awakening, identity, marriage, money, and what happens when we finally stop running from ourselves. This isn't about optimization, it's about becoming. Enjoy the show. Welcome to Make It a Great One with Dr. Dan. I'm Dan Peters, psychologist and leadership coach. This show is all about bringing hope, connection, awareness, and wisdom through meaningful conversations that inspire us to be better versions of ourselves and have a positive impact on humanity. This is your space to pause, reflect, and reconnect with who you are, what you care about, and who you want to be. We have this moment, this day, and this life. Let's make it a great one. Today, I am speaking with Thomas Blottenberger. Founder of the Risk Reward Agency, Thomas is a transformational coach for high-achieving men who feel stuck, disconnected, and unfulfilled beneath their outward success. After a 15-year career as a financial advisor, he left the industry to address what money couldn't fix: broken trust, emotional numbness, and the silent collapse of marriages and identity. Drawing from the Warrior's Way, neuroscience, and his own spiritual and emotional rebirth, Thomas helps men reclaim purpose through radical honesty, emotional mastery, and courageous leadership at home, in business, and in life. Thomas, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
We got a lot to talk about.
And one little caveat that, we were talking about twists and turns and shifts and things. One little caveat that I heard you say that I'm like, oh, I got to go update that, is that I actually didn't end up leaving the industry. I originally had it as an either or, and then I realized I can do both. So I coach on this equation that we're going to be talking about, and then naturally, generally, as people have breakthroughs with themselves, that turns into more prosperity, which then, if they want, I help them do and manage in an effective way. So I realize I can do both. It doesn't have to be an either or.
You can do both, and that doesn't surprise me that you are doing both. And as we were talking about before the show, seeing your transition and transformation from listening to prior interviews that you have been on and looking at your media, what I think is so fascinating about what you just said is I was listening to shows that were supposed to be about finance, and you were talking about life transformation, insight, awareness, changing thoughts, changing narratives, changing behaviors, and then working in some money stuff, because I think that's what the host was actually wanting to, like, isn't that what you're here for? Even though they were all in on the life
they gave
stuff.
You some trouble about that.
Right. And then you pivoted to really focus on the coaching, the life transformation, transforming from the inside out. And now you're bringing money, which has been something you've done for a long time, back into it. So it's just a different order. It's just like kind of the door, you're going through a different door, it seems like, but transformation was happening over time.
Yeah, I couldn't say it better than that. Yeah. It's a constant the term that I really enjoy that a mentor of mine once said is eternal expansion.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a game that I'm about, is you break through one ceiling, or you have one, like, oh my gosh, epiphany. And then there's like chaos and stuff that happens, and you're like, I don't know what to do with this new, like, okay, cool, epiphany, but I'm so incompetent with this.
Mm-hmm.
And then you become competent, and then it becomes like, okay, I can do this. And then there's the next level, right?
Yes. Yes. And
forever and always. And then you die at some point.
Forever and always. Yes. Yes. While we are here. I share that same experience when you said the yes and, or the either or, from either or to yes and.
Yeah.
And as we were talking about my long career as a psychologist, and then newer career as an executive leadership coach, I went through that same thing of like, well, I have to be separate. Like, here's my psychology life and here's my coaching life, and these are separate lanes, and I need to keep them separate. And my process, and it was necessary, as I think you found you needed to separate first to get some clarity, but ultimately it was fragmenting, and I wasn't bringing my whole self to all of the work. I was sort of like limiting
Mm.
myself by saying, oh, I have to stay in this lane and I have to stay in this lane. But then when I realized it's a yes and, sure, I have to be aware of the context of which I'm working. But when I bring my full self with all of my present awareness and my experience to the situation or to the room, it's far more impactful. And I am far more present to be who I am with what I bring by being holistic as opposed to separate.
Yeah. Well, it's that's a great point because I think so many times we sell ourselves the lie, and even we're maybe, let's say, sold a lie sometimes on that compartmentalization, right? Like, a great example is even the concept. And, maybe we have different points of view. I don't think we would, but work-life balance. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's a myth. That's not. It's not possible. I'm sorry. Is work not life?
Right.
Right? There is no work-life balance. There's just life and what you choose to do within those things. So there's people I know that have tons of time. They're not working all that hard, and they still don't spend time with their kids, and then or family, right? The life part of the equation. And then I know
Mm-hmm.
people that work tons of hours and really put their heart and soul into what they do and the difference that they make in the world. And when they're with their family, they are with their family, like no distractions, no nothing. It's I'm present with you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, which one would be better? I would
Mm-hmm.
think the latter versus the former, but
Yeah.
somehow we get taught it's supposed to be the other way around.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I always question the work-life balance as well, because if you just look at I mean, I understand the concept, but if you just look at the hours, like the hours that one, if you just take the 40-hour work week, which exists in some industries and doesn't exist in many industries, that alone, how many hours of the day that you're awake and not sleeping are you working relative to the part that you're supposed to have for life, right?
Right.
So there inherently there can't be quantitative balance there. So then it becomes highly conceptual.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah.
I love it. I think there's a blessing and a curse in cliches, and there's a lot of wisdom, but once they become a cliche, it loses its depth. And
Mm-hmm.
when it loses
Mm-hmm.
its depth, it loses its power. So there's so many like that out
Right.
there. Another one someone told me literally this morning. We're doing a coaching call, and he goes, I said something. He goes, "Oh yeah, I listen to respond instead of listen to understand." I go, "Oh, that's cool. What does that mean?"
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, "Well, that I listen to respond instead of listen to understand." I was like, "Okay, what would it look like if you did respond versus understand?" He's like, "I can't really explain it." I'm like, "Then how do you know you're doing it?"
Mm-hmm.
He
Yeah.
goes, I don't know,
Yeah.
because I never really thought about that."
Right.
So we like unpacked that and went like kind of deeper into it and realized you're always listening to respond. It's just what are you responding from?
Mm.
There's no way to listen without the intent of response. It's just, am I responding from my triggers and my defenses and my difficulties, or am I responding from openness and love and a genuine desire to connect?
Mm-hmm.
That's really the crux of it.
That is. And pulling this back with the your definition of no work life balance, and like it's all life, and how do we choose to spend our time. You had talked about on a previous podcast when you were finance first, coach second, right, in your
Yeah.
previous iteration, but you were talking about presence, and this to me is what we're talking about here, is when we are present in our life, so many different opportunities open up for us. And it's like, how do we show up, whatever we're doing, with that present moment awareness so we can um, be open and aware of, oh, am I getting triggered? Like, am I, am I,
Hmm.
am I right here right now? Is this something that is from the past that I'm being triggered? That thinking about our thinking, which
Right.
I know you're going to, you is part of the program that you work with, is like really having this awareness of where is this coming from. And it all comes down to presence, which is hard to define in words what that actually is.
Yeah. Well, it is, but there's a surefire way to kind of tell that I've found. What See, this is what tends to happen, I think, is people mistakenly conflate that who they are is their emotions and their thoughts. And so, like, I am angry versus I'm experiencing or anger, right? Like, there's a slight connotational difference there. And what tends to happen is when I collapse who I am into my emotions and my thoughts, then I'm not present. My default behaviors are present. When I can expand to where I start to notice that my thoughts don't, like, they're my thoughts, but I don't have to act on them. They don't actually run the show. They're just things that are happening. And I can go, oh, cool. Thank you for popping up the thought that I'm really scared and I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. And I don't know, Dan seems pretty intense. I don't know if I'm going to do a good job on the show. Thanks for popping up. Appreciate you. And what am I going to do now?
Yes. Right.
To me, that's presence.
That is present moment awareness, right? That is,
Yeah.
It is, it's easier to talk about. And so we both know from our own lives, spending a lot of time talking about it and trying to put it into practice and helping other people do the same. It is complicated, right?
Yeah.
We have these triggers, these scars, these reactions, this physiology, right? This
Oh, yeah.
neurochemistry, this stuff that like just comes with being human. They're like you spend a lifetime, I think, like hopefully trying to figure out how to be the best version of yourself in this body, in this container that we are operating within. And it is a process of couple steps forward, step back, couple steps forward,
Yeah.
or major steps sideways. It's the intention, right? And when we think of even present moment awareness with meditation, the expectation is you are going to get distracted. Like you are going to get distracted.
You're going to get lost in
right.
thought.
It's to be aware to move yourself back to present.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, one of the things that I teach, I think it's really on point with what you're sharing because like the most important thing, and I think there's a big distinction between the gurus and the guides. The gurus to me are people who pretend they have it all figured out. The guides are the people who are like, dude, I'm on this journey with you. Like everything I'm talking about was a suit like that, like there's elements of which I've figured out, like when I say it. So I don't mean it dismissively, like, oh, once you uncollapse, right? It's super easy to do to uncollapse you from your thoughts. That was a trial by fire, emotional, insanely difficult, gut wrenching process. And I'm still in the midst of it because it still happens. Right. But I think sometimes there's a 3-part initial process that I teach as a way to conceptualize. The first part of the game is to wake up, right? To awaken. Most people are just asleep. They just don't even realize that there's things going on. It's just a subconscious routine. So the first part of the process is wake up, so awakening. Then the next part after awakening is, I think what people tend to do, I'm so guilty of this. Oh my God. I go right from an awareness of something to fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is where you've heard me talk about on a different show. I have to reference it because you heard me talk about it. This is where budgeting fails.
Yep.
Because and this is the reason why it fails, because people go from awakening, oh wow, I didn't realize I was spending this much here. I didn't realize I was doing that. To immediately attempting to control and manage and tight fist something they just became aware of or awakened to. Good luck.
Right.
Good luck.
Not sustainable.
It's
not sustainable.
Right. So it's awaken, right? Like, okay, you got to awaken. And then there's a space, a willingness to dance in the, wow, I'm awake to this. And holy crap, I don't know what to do about it. And that stage to me is the awareness. So I have some people in a program right now where their only job right now is just to notice, all the times that they externalize their power. Oh, I
Mhm.
can't do this because I didn't have the time. I can't do this because my wife. I can't do this because this. Right? And you start to notice it. Then you can move to application. All right, now that you are awakened to it and you can really see it, and you had the space created to play with it and notice it and be with it, now application. People are too fast to try to fix things. That's the biggest difficulty I think in this realm, is
Mhm.
to actually create some space between discovery and and the actual attempt to do something about it.
Yes, and you are focusing and targeting men um, in your work, and we know, both of us being of that species, that there tends to be something wired into the DNA and the socializing, the nature and nurture of the male species, which
Oh
tends
yeah.
to, at a fault, right? I mean, it has obviously has evolutionary benefits. However, when we think about self growth, we think about times of parenting, things about in our relationships with our partners. That is not always the way to go. That's
Yeah.
not what we need to be doing. Mm.
So men wrap their identities from dawn of time into their ability to provide and produce. But that is a quantifiable, like, subjective standard. And I think that that's where we get ourselves into a lot of trouble in this particular time frame, is and in this world, is this and we talked a little bit about it before, this game of performance, where I build a life and build a world, not of what I want and not of what my purpose is or my value, but as a function of trying to make other people be proud of, or validate my work. You can only do that for so long before it fizzles out, or you fizzle out, or you go to sedate. When someone does that, they either sedate, which is the drugs, the alcohol, the porn, the addictions, right?
Mhm.
Or they explode, blowing up, domestic violence, yelling at your wife, hitting your kids. Like, it's, and
Mhm.
it's usually a function of, I'm living a life that's not what I actually thought it would be or what I want, because I'm trying to make other people happy, because I'm trying to validate my existence.
And that's the part of waking up, and realizing that is in and of itself um, can cause an additional disintegration. So like first, right? Like first you're like you're falling apart, or you're imploding, or you're exploding, or you're numbing, and you're doing what you've been socialized to do, what society, your family tells you to do. You've been programmed. We've all been programmed that what are we supposed to do? What are we not supposed to do? And that based on, geography and family and culture.
Yep.
And then we hit this wall. Most people hit a wall, or if you don't hit a wall, it's like just a low burn that eventually you just run out of gas. And then those of us who are fortunate enough to have, it's like fortunate enough to have this awakening, then it's
Hmm.
like, holy crap, I've been living this whole way for others, for affirmation, for perception. And I have not been living for me. I didn't even know what I wanted. I didn't even
Yeah.
know that I wasn't choosing, that I was just going through it. Right. Then there's that next level of, holy crap, like, what do I do now? And as we know, it's the disintegration that is the opportunity for the
Hmm.
growth and the ultimate reintegration of who one really is, aligned with their values and their
Yeah.
integrity.
When I love the terminology used too, because it's so interesting that there's people that have figured this out throughout history. Very, rare, selective, but you see the thematics. I was talking to my wife about this not that long ago. I was like, it's amazing when you start to see the thematic concept of what you just said, right? The awakening, the disintegration, and the reintegration. The phoenix, right? The mythology of death and
Mhm.
rebirth of the phoenix, right? The fiery, explosive death with the rebirth, right? The story of Jesus, the crucifixion, resurrection. right? There's so much of this life alliteration and evidence that's given to us about the game here is ultimately about a constant awakening, surrender to disintegrate, rebirth. So awaken, surrender, rebirth. Right? It's this is why the cliche of don't focus on the destination, focus on the journey is so correct, though shallow. Is there isn't a destination. It is
No,
only ever the
no.
process of self-discovery
Yeah.
within the journey.
Yes. Oh, that's so it. And we are not wired like we're just not wired naturally for that. We're always trying to get somewhere. And we do know a lot
Yep.
of the right, the more the Eastern philosophies and religions and the Tao and the way. And of course, your work with the way, the warrior's way, right? This is like the
Yep.
way is the process. And what I always think back is as the recovering perfectionist achiever, still in recovery, is thinking
Still
about, and I
recovery.
love to hike and be in nature, and thinking of just my younger days going to the places that we like to go in the Sierras. And the goal would be to get to the top. And I'd be thinking about getting to the top the entire time. It
Mm.
was not fun at all. And then when I got to the top, it was like, okay, when are we going to get to the bottom? And
Yep.
so the symbolism or the metaphor was like literally when I was starting to become aware and to make these changes was it was about the journey up and the journey down, and it's so different. Um, and I'll say one more thing about that is even before that I was even aware of this. Running is another way that I clear my mind and for my own mental and emotional health. I years ago stopped wearing a watch because for the same reason, given my makeup, I was always like running for time and I was
Mm.
freaking miserable. And I know a lot, I mean, I know a lot of people track a lot of things these days on rings and watches and this is no, whatever works for everyone. But what I realize is when I run, if I don't want to think about time. I want to think about, I just want to be out there and I want to have my experience and my process. So these are just these ways that you're making me think about of like how we're
Yeah.
so wired for to get there, to get
Yep.
there.
Yep. It's an interesting. Well, logically though, if you think of human evolution, history, sociology, right? This how we've evolved as a society and as a species, it does make sense of the our ancestors would need to be thinking about that from a standpoint of literal survival,
Yes.
right? And the distinction is society has advanced at such a rapid rate that the brain hasn't learned how to interpret that. So we still look for survival. I told my wife one time, uh, I'm going to say it. There we go. This is me on full display. She goes, "Why do you think?" She goes, "The world seems like it's kind of bad right now. Like there's a lot of crazy stuff happening. People are like they're so angsty. There's so much. So what do you think the problem is?" I looked at her. I was like, I looked thoughtful for a second. I said, "We got too much food." And she goes, "What?" I said, "Yeah." I was like, the brain is desired for survival. Most of human history has been about nutrition and or nutrients and supplements, or sustaining, right? Like food, water, right? In the past, there'd be a water supply like the river, and you would have to take a half a mile walk or journey down to the river and get water, and then you'd come back, and then you'd have to go hunt for an animal, and you'd get it, and then or tend the garden, tend your farm, your crops, right? Most of your day was spent cultivating the thing that was going to keep you alive. And now you just go on your app on your phone and go, I want Chick-fil-A delivered. Boop, it's right there, right? So the brain still needs to survive, so it invents stuff to survive, right? Like, oh, this person doesn't like me because they said this one thing. I promise you, your ancestors did not care as much about that because
No,
they
no,
were
they
too
were like,
busy.
they just didn't want people to attack them or their family
Right,
or their
exactly.
tribe,
That's
right? It
the
was
only
a much
thing that they
larger
cared
level
about.
than, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's just an interesting. It's just when most people go, "What's wrong with me?" I think the biggest grace that anybody can give themselves is nothing. Your brain is wired perfectly to survive. And that may not be the game you want to play.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. It might be the game you want to play. That's okay too. But there's nothing wrong with you. Your brain's wired perfect. I was talking to someone in their late 40s, and he was talking about that. I'm like, he was talking about his childhood and whatnot. I'm like, listen, there's nothing to fix. You're not broken.
I'm thinking about this want us to think about this in a really grounded way. How someone wakes up, how someone starts to become, and through that process, we can become more intentional and we can become more than
Mhm.
what we are and have different experiences than what we did, and give to ourselves more and then give to others more.
So you seem similar to me in this way. So this might be why that word does what it does for you. Is my experience of optimized is it's generally an externalized experience, right?
Yeah.
Optimize meaning, okay, my P&L is designed more effectively. Optimize and my cost of goods are decreased because I got a better shipping department, or I got, I cut a deal with UPS for bulk, rates or whatever, or flat rates. That generally optimized tends to be an external thing, whereas becoming is that's only one way. That's an internal process.
Right on.
And I think that's the interesting game that I think it's played. And this is especially rampant in the financial world with financial advisors, because I coach a lot of them. Is it's like every company I talk to is just more business systems, more CRM systems, more processes, better lead flow, better lead gen, streamlined meetings, more effective conversations, better fact finders, da 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 da. And it's like, if it, I'm going to say it, and it should just sound true. If I focus on becoming the highest and best version of myself, the natural outcome of that would be an elevation and an optimization of everything else.
Yes.
It would have to be, because otherwise you're not. The only way it wouldn't be is you're theorizing what it would be to be a better version, but then still doing the same actions, right? So that's why I think it's backwards. Not that, again, I think business coaching is great, but I think it's backwards on, if you're here's how I visualize it. All right, imagine I've got a 2-bedroom home, and I go, you know what? I need to optimize. I'd like to fit a 747 inside of this 2-bedroom home. Okay, well, you you either can't, or you got to disassemble it so much that it's no longer functional, and it takes up all the space, and it's not effective, right? So to me, the process of becoming is, okay, how do I expand capacity such that there's now a landing strip available and the fully functional 747 is available to work? And I think that kind of tends to be the mistake, and not mistake, but the way in which it's dealt with. And I've seen this in the financial world all the time, right? Like, well, if I just save more money, if I just invest more money, if I just did this, if I just did that, it's like, well, yeah, that would optimize. And there's a reason it's not happening right now. So there's something here that's having that not happen. And if you deal with this, then the
Yes.
default, or the natural progression, would be that happens. Yeah. So, I mean, I think I shared on a podcast once, and I've shared it multiple
Yes.
times, but I'll share it here, is
We are
just
we are
like
fully aligned.
to really hit home,
Yeah.
like how human I am about this. I was a financial advisor. For the first few years of my career, I had no money. I made a lot of money, but I had none. I would spend everything I made. Everything. Everything. I could get a check and I'm like, ooh, blah, 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 spend it out. So I tell people all these different strategies they could do. Theoretically, I know all the things, but in practice, I could not implement. I did not implement. And finally, I'm like, what is going on? But not from a place of shame, which was different. There was a moment. Most people ask the question, what is wrong with me? Or why am I doing this, from a place of shame and guilt, which never opens up anything to see. It's just a cudgeling of yourself. is probably the greatest lesson I've learned is curiosity about yourself versus cudgeling yourself. So I asked the question, actually curious, why do I do this? And I created some space and I started looking. I realized as a kid, I had a financial situation, my family. I was an only child. I had everything I wanted. It was really nice. My parents made some financial mistakes, had some difficulty, and I went from all this to living or staying with them in my grandparents' house in the same room, not getting the toys and the things that I was used to getting. And it was like 7 year old or 8 year old, forget how old I was, but it was weird. I didn't understand it. So I asked, and they gave me a little bit of an answer. And then what seems logical, I was the only child that got everything I wanted and cried when I didn't. So it seems logical as a parent to say, and this is a great opportunity for you to learn to be grateful and not be so spoiled. Totally makes sense. I heard, we're not going to protect you. You're not safe. You better use what you've got before someone takes it from you. So if it was someone's going to take it from me, that's what just happened. And people
Mm.
aren't going to protect me. So the question is, am I going to wait till someone takes it from me or I'm going to enjoy it before it happens? Good luck. Good luck giving me a budget.
Unconscious. Unconscious. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's actually really powerful because
Yeah.
it shows the difference between behavior, which is why you say like, yeah, budgets don't work if unless you work on the stuff underneath. And you had an unconscious, we call it automatic thought,
Hmm.
or nowadays operating system, always running that you weren't even aware of. That was not only guiding your behavior, it was like compelling your behavior.
I did not understand myself. And because I didn't understand myself thinking I should, I guilt and shamed myself. When I guilt and shamed myself, that creates isolation. You think you're the only one doing it. You think it's a you problem. You hide from yourself. You try to escape yourself. I think ignorance exists in isolation, uh, and and I don't mean ignorance like people are dumb. I mean ignorance like actually being
Mm-hmm.
unaware.
Mm-hmm.
Usually happens inside of isolation. Um, and most of the questions people ask themselves are isolating questions. What's wrong with me? Why am I like this? Why can't I figure this out? You know, uh, why did my parents do this to me? Right? Those are
Mm-hmm.
isolating questions. There's no answer to them that's going to create ownership.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is the echo chamber also, which is why um, working with a trusted individual helps dig, excavate, and externalize these stories and these narratives with which drive us and run us. Um, and it's often, this isn't a pitch for everyone. Like, yeah, so work with us. This is like you could. It's definitely an option, and we're going to tell you how to do that with Thomas at the end of the show, which will be very valuable. And that said, from my own experience too, of having my own coach and having done a lot of therapy, it is really
Yeah.
hard to do this work on your own. It's really hard.
Love that cliche. Oh, it's so great. But what's the box? Well, when you're talking about yourself, it's you. So how do you think outside of
Right.
you without some sort of support? And the brain is great. This is
Hmm.
why support is so necessary. The brain's great. It'll
Right.
reinforce I don't is this a clean podcast? Okay. It reinforced the shit out of whatever you already think. Right? So there's no
You
out
say whatever you
thinking.
need.
The brain's like, oh, you're like, I think my wife is saying something that's like, I think she's
Right.
questioning my abilities. Yeah, she is. She is doing it's like Smeagol, right? It's like, yeah, she is. She's messing with you, man. Like,
Hmm. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Or I had a discussion with my wife once where I was trying to share with her a dream. This was actually, I'm going to talk about recency. This was 2 days ago. Having a conversation. What I've noticed is just not shaming myself and telling the truth, right? Actually owning the feeling.
Hmm.
I was
Right.
having a conversation. I was trying to tell her about a dream that really messed with me. And like it felt so viscerally real. And I'm telling her
Right.
about it. And she starts to interrupt me and say, "Well, you should tell it like the way you tell stories is so funny." I'm like, "What?" She goes, "You could have just said this." And I'm like, "Well, but I haven't got to the point of like how it like really messed with me." And I feel myself starting to get like, "Ugh." And I stop and I stop. I said, "Give me a second." I stop and I look and I'm like, "Oh, I'm feeling stupid right now." Like that's what's going on. Is like there's this trigger of I'm not being listened to. She's interrupting me. She's telling me how I should do it because I'm dumb. And I've spent my whole life trying to combat I'm dumb. That's why, study and finance and all this kind of stuff. Previously, before I discovered this, it turned me into a really condescending asshole, right? Because I was projecting I'm not dumb, which meant you
Right. I'm
need
smarter
to
than you.
see how
You're dumb.
smart I am.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So I was like, oh, wow, I feel dumb for wanting to tell the story. I feel dumb for thinking this was a good story to tell. And I sat with it. An old version of me would have not, first off, not even sat with that and not realized that. It would have went right to, she's the problem. She's making me feel that way. If only she didn't interrupt. I've asked her not to interrupt. How dare she disrespect me and say that my story is, that this is how she should have told this. I should have told the story. Like I'm my own person. Oh, like it would have went that whole way, right? And so I was just sitting with it. I'm like, hey, sweetheart, I love you. Nothing you did. Um, I'm really feeling dumb right now, and it's not your fault. It's my old programming. Just gonna sit with it for a second. I said, just give me a moment. I said, I'm not gonna keep telling the story. It's really not that important anyway. I was like, but you're all good. Just give me a moment. So I sat with it. I'm like, all right, let it sitting with it, let it release. And I go, okay. I was like, hey, so I'm good. I'm not gonna keep telling the story just because it was a dream. Here's what happened. All right. Thank you for the suggestion of just speeding it up. How are you doing? What's going on for you? Did you have anything interesting happen?
Hmm.
And I actually got interested in her. It was weird, like, not weird, but it's like
Yeah. No, good
you
weird.
get
Like
sometimes
good
so
weird.
wrapped up
Yeah.
in your own
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. That's actually a really nice example of how different you handled that situation to, I'm sure, the many times with your automatic programming, how you would
Oh,
react
yeah.
in the past, right? And
My
it's a
automatic
level of depth.
programming made
Yeah.
me unlovable while all I was asking for was love.
Right.
It literally made me unlovable because I was such a pain in the ass and like
Mhm.
trying to marry in. I'm performing, so therefore you must perform. I'm going to dictate how you perform to show me the love I don't feel for myself. Let me
Mhm.
marionette you.
Yeah.
And luckily, I had a wife who saw through that and saw what was possible, was willing to deal with it. But I think that's why a lot of divorces are initiated by women, is because when men are taught to perform and that our only validation is the external, then we transactionalize relationships. Right? I made you a stay-at-home mom, so you should respect me. I bought you this, so you shouldn't be nagging me about that.
Right.
Right? We don't create any safety for women to our women in our lives to actually be heard. And when they're not heard, they shut down, and that's where divorces happen, cheating happens, and then we're like, oh, I can't believe she did that. I gave her everything. You didn't give her
Mhm.
you.
Mhm. Right, and that actually reminds me of one of your Instagram reels where you're talking about, the person, the man who's numbing and is not paying attention to his partner, his wife, and all of a sudden he gets the wake up call of, you know what, I'm thinking about leaving, or I think we should separate. I think we should get a
Yep.
divorce, and it's like, oh gosh, I got to dial right in. Okay, I'm gonna get flowers. I'm gonna go on a date. I'm gonna be attentive. And as you point out, that's actually like a budget. That's like trying to do a budget. Like you can do
Hmm.
that for only so long, but if you don't look at your internal programming, your patterns, your narratives, your stories, the same, it's not going to change. It's just you're
Yeah.
just kicking the can down the road a little longer.
Yeah. Well, and that's most, I think there's a lot of women that complain about letting their man know something. He starts to do it for a little bit, and then he tapers off once the storms died down, once it doesn't seem like there's a threat to the relationship. And that's the danger of going from awakening, right? That moment is an awakening moment. oh my
Yes.
gosh, what? Right to close-fisted control application without any sitting in the space of creating awareness first, because now you're just reacting. And
Right.
anytime you're like, I've found, you tell me your thoughts on this. I've found there's only two modes really that operate in life. You're either reacting or creating.
Hmm.
And if I'm reacting, I eventually, like, there's a path of least resistance. The only thing that pulls you people through difficult things is an act of creation. It's the seeing of what's possible and the actual, like, ownership and self-discovery and power inside of the creation. If I'm just reacting, as soon as the thing I'm reacting to seems to be settled, I go back to default because the
Right.
reaction was just a defense survival mechanism, and
Hmm.
it's not something that can be maintained.
Yeah, I like that, and I wanna kick
You
this
can
back
take
to you.
it.
Yeah, no, it's like, no, what do you think about this? Because I want to add something in the middle of reacting and
Yeah.
creating. So I think about Stephen Covey in The Eighth Habit. He talked about stimulus and response, and that
Mm,
successful people, the difference that successful people have compared to unsuccessful people, I mean, I'm using these words loosely, is a larger space between the stimulus and the response. So thinking about that as you were talking, what the image that I had between reacting and creating is what we started talking about, which is presence.
yeah.
And I feel like there's this might be this place in between because I see reacting and creating as both action.
Hmm.
Whereas presence is a being rather than a doing, and I wonder if the transition from reacting to creating sits in presence.
Yeah. I like it. I like it. So I'll address it as my thought on it, but I'm going
Yeah.
to go real quick to that stimulus response. One of the So even Viktor Frankl said that in Man's Search for Meaning.
Yep.
I'm going to bastardize the quote, but between stimulus and response, there's a space, and in that space, there's choice.
Yeah, and
Um,
he said that before Stephen Covey, yeah, so
yeah. Well, no, it's
yes.
just the point is
Yeah.
how, like, it tends to be. Yeah, I'm a huge fan and studier of history, ancient philosophy, ancient text, and it tends to be that there really aren't that many new ideas.
Mhm.
Right?
Right.
It's just a shifting and rediscovery. Mankind loses it for a while. Someone else discovers it and shares it in a different way in a different region. But it's all kind of like this same underlying concept of choice, and choosing how we show up and choosing how we handle ourselves. Um, so one of the most powerful questions I've ever asked myself that I would give as a like a what people should consider doing is reading that book and getting that quote. The question I started to ask myself is, okay, I know there's going to be a stimulus. I know there's going to be a response. That's just default nature science. What he just said about there being a space, what can I do to increase that gap? What
Yes.
way of thinking, what practices, what things could I take on to expand the space between the stimulus and the response?
Absolutely.
That has been one of the most powerful inquiries for me. And I think one of the other things that's beneficial in life is to actually not always try to answer questions. Questions to me are things to view life through. So I view life through. What made a difference for me was viewing life through the question of how do I widen that gap. I mean, Einstein even echoes this, right? Spend 95% of the time on the problem and 5% on the solution.
Mhm.
Going back to what you said, I don't know if presence can exist. So this is an inquiry. You said it, and I'm just playing with it as we're talking.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
don't know if presence can exist without or independent of action, because something's always going on. right? It's like they have that saying of be, do, have. You be, and then you
Yes.
do, and then you have. And I think it's more of an action verb. Being while you're doing gives you what you're having. So I don't necessarily know. It might just be semantics,
Hmm.
but I don't know if the being is separate from the thing that's happening or the action that's being taken, or if you could just be with no action. I don't know. I haven't actually
Okay.
thought about
Yeah,
that.
yeah. This is a good inquiry. So, would you say that does someone have pres is someone ex, does someone have presence when they are reacting?
I would say no by the definition of reaction that I'm using.
Hmm. Okay.
Right? The definition of reaction is the amygdala the amygdala, the part that controls the fight or flight, kicks in, right? And your subconscious routines take over. Your
Hmm.
cortex is shut down. You're not present. Your default behaviors kick in. You react. Once you're through whatever the threat was or perceived thing was, or the trigger, then your cortex turns back on, and then you go, oh, here's why I did what I did, as if it was logical. So I think reaction by definition is a subconscious routine program versus a
Yes.
conscious act of intentionality.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Agreed.
Did
And
the
on the
psychologist in you like that?
oh, I like that a lot. Yes, as
Yeah.
someone who spent a lot of time in it with working with anxiety and talking about the amygdala, we are fully aligned.
I love
Um,
it.
Now, the flip side. So I'm still trying to get to the middle, and then we'll see if we get to the middle as we start to wind down
By the
here.
way, I
Which
have to
is
say I
yeah.
thoroughly enjoy the like there's one thing that's cool to talk about, and I think there's a lot of podcasts that do this. Talk about what you know. I'm loving the idea of like exploring things where both like, hey, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. Like, because then to me, it's like listeners can watch. We do this already in, like most of the time. I imagine you do the same kind of inquiry off air,
Hmm.
and it's I think an amazing process to have people see how it works when you're trying to source it out, right?
Agreed.
It's
Agreed.
not a like, oh, I just figured it out. It's a process by which you inquire and explore and discuss and challenge ideas and take ones that don't make sense and go, okay, well, never mind with that, right?
Yeah, well, and process is key. We're going back to like that's one of the themes of our conversation today is process, and it really
Yeah.
is honoring and stepping into the process as opposed to how we are conditioned for outcomes.
So you want to look at
So
this
where I
middle
want, so I
ground.
want to say, so I want to say is on the other side. So
Yeah.
again, it's the tough part's the middle, which is because on the other side with creation, and I was as I was going to ask you a question, I'm just going to say where I went with my own answer to the question. When we
Mm,
think of creativity, and we think of the ultimate experience of presence is what Csikszentmihalyi calls flow. And
mm,
for those of us who, whether we are playing a sport or we're performing or we are creating, the feeling of flow is the most incredible feeling, which comes from absolute, full embodied presence in the present moment.
yeah.
And the paradox and the irony of it is the moment you become aware you're in flow, flow actually can like ends up going away because now you're so now we've bookmarked it. We've bookmarked the creativity, the flow on the one end, the reactivity, our brain shutting off, our amygdala just keeping us
Yeah.
alive. Um, yeah, is there anything in between, or is it just one fluid continuum?
You know, it's definitely one of those things I don't know the answer to.
Yeah.
My initial thought, and I definitely want to source it out further, but my initial thought is it's a spectrum, right? Just
Hmm.
like a spectrum of, and maybe you can quantify or classify. I think someone classified it kind of like this once, and it landed with me. It was there's unconscious incompetent, right? And then there's conscious incompetent, and then there's conscious competent, and then there's unconscious competent. And I would say that unconscious competent is pure flow state.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
unconscious incompetent is pure reaction.
Agreed.
And the other ones in between are the process of discovery of going from the one side of the spectrum to the other. And that since it's a spectrum, like you said, I can be unconscious competent and then become aware of it and then go into all my routines of, oh man, how did I do that? What's going on? Like, how can I replicate that? Why can't I replicate it? Man, there's something wrong with me that I can't get back into that state. It was so cool when I was there.
Yeah.
Right back to the other side of the spectrum.
And that's being human, right? Right
Yeah.
there. That is being human.
Well, and one of the things I think, I'll say this too. It's my I don't know if it's my definition. It's just the one I choose. It's the one I work with. I think sometimes people. This is the biggest problem with social media and highlight reel culture. Is people additionally are isolated from a standpoint of thinking everybody else has it figured out because people only post what's working. You know, I just had a huge argument with my wife, and we're talking about divorce, and she puts a picture on. This didn't happen, but like for me, but like this happens. I've got people that talk about this, and we're a huge argument talking about divorce, and she puts a picture up on vacation with the kids. Oh, I'm so thankful for this, and I'm so thankful we get to have this life, and da 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 da. Right, and it's all that performance game, but we forget other people are playing the performance game. We think we're the only one performing. So it's I think that's a huge difficulty that occurs in that isolation piece of the equation. And then I forget where I was going to go with that, but I was in flow state and I started questioning it.
Yeah. You got out. You popped right back out of the flow right there.
See,
Yeah.
perfect demonstration right there for
Yes.
everybody.
Yes. The
Uh,
trap. Well,
yeah,
let's just go with, you know what? Let's go with, as we're the performance trap. We started with the performance trap. The
yeah,
men that you work with are in the performance trap,
yep,
which is not uncommon. And you work with them to get them out of the performance trap. And as we are coming to a close, what do you recommend to people listening, to people who are like resonating with these messages, these feelings, these experiences? What do you recommend they think about as they consider change?
yeah. That's a good one. I would say if I were to give two pieces of just, I think generalized, I hate generalized advice, by the way, just because it's generalized. But if there were two pieces I think are generalized well enough that people could apply or at least start to look at. The number one is notice if you're asking yourself questions out of curiosity or out of shame and guilt. And then the last thing, given the money piece, since we briefly talked about that, is it's never about money, ever.
Mm-hmm.
When you fight with your spouse about money, it's not about money. When you're worried about money, it's not about money. When you're happy about the money, it's not about the money. Right? When you're trading and gambling and getting the thrill of like multiplying the account or the manic or the depressive experience of losing the whole account, it's not about the money. Money is only ever a conduit. And that's I think why I coach around it so much. It's the greatest vehicle by which someone can see themselves without initially looking at themselves.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to leave you all thinking about that, everyone. Money, it's not about the money. It's not about the money. And be curious. Ask yourself the questions. Try to be curious. Try to give yourself self compassion. Put aside the shame and
Yeah.
give yourself grace. Thomas,
Amen, River.
tell everyone where they can find more about your work.
I'm a Instagram boy. So they can just follow me or shoot me a message on Instagram. Uh, so my handle is at Mr. Mr. dot Blottenberger.
And also, I will say that you have a powerful video on your website. about the work that you're doing, and would you want people to find it there?
Oh, yes.
So risk reward, we'll put that in the show notes as well. And there is a powerful video, which is really well designed to lead people about the paradigm shift work that you do, and give a little taste of it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, and one of the things for everybody is, I just like I'm very clear. Like, one of the mission statements, I had no idea how to do it. One of the mission statements that I came up with in 2021 was that, uh, my commitment on this planet is to have every interaction, so how much any interaction someone has with me, leave them with more energy and more possibility just from having met me and interacted with me, right? Just as a conversation. That's who I'm committed to be, and I measure everything against that. And so from that perspective, if someone's like not sure, they were hesitant, they want some support or just to have a conversation, I got time. I manage my life. I can manage my calendar. I love talking to people. So if people just want to have a conversation, just to explore, expand, not even about like working with me. If they want to work with me, cool, that's fine. But even just like a brief conversation that might make a difference for someone, I'm down for it.
Awesome. Hear that, everyone? Thomas is here to serve. Check him out on his IG account. He's going to get right back to you. Thomas, thanks for your time. Thanks for the connection, and just for an authentic conversation.
Yeah, man, it was great. I appreciate
Yeah.
you. I love what you're
Yeah.
doing too.
Thank you.
Excited to see. I just, I think sometimes it's the like, we do the work and we know we make a difference, and sometimes it's unspoken because we're just doing it. And I just want you to know, on behalf of your clientele and the people listening to you, you're just awesome, dude. Like, I'm
Oh,
so clear on what you're about and where you're taking this and just the difference you want to make, and it's just absolutely an honor to be in the same space
oh.
with you. So thank you.
I'm taking that in, man. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thomas is a transformational coach who is transforming. As he says, he is someone who lives what he talks about and what he teaches, and reminds us that we are all always changing and working and growing. Here are 5 key takeaways from our conversation. Number 1, awakening comes first, and it's rarely comfortable. True transformation requires noticing our patterns before trying to fix them. Most of us skip straight to control when what we need is space and awareness. Number 2, presence changes everything. Whether in conflict, relationships, or financial decisions, expanding the space between stimulus and response is where freedom begins. Number 3, men are often socialized into performance, not presence. Thomas highlighted how proving, providing, and fixing can eclipse authentic connection, especially in marriage. Number 4, money is never about money. It's a mirror reflecting our stories, fears, attachments, and survival strategies. When we understand the story underneath, everything can shift. And number 5, curiosity instead of shame. Transformation becomes possible when we stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "What's happening in me?" Curiosity opens the door that shame keeps locked. Lots to think about and process. This is about becoming, not about performing, how we can stand in our presence, be in our presence, and as a result, step into and show up for everything in our life in a better and more grounded way. Please share this episode with anyone and everyone that you think will benefit. Thank you for your 5-star reviews, for being a part of this community, for subscribing. We want to know what you think about our episodes, and particularly this episode. So feel free to DM us at Dr. Dan Peters on Instagram or respond to our social media posts. We have this moment, this day, and this life. Let's make it a great one. This has been a Peters and Rossi production. Make It a Great One with Dr. Dan is produced by Laura Rossi. Our engineer is Phil Rossi. Theme music is Uplifting Folk by Awesome Music. Artwork by Kelly Dwyer. Follow us on social media at Dr. Dan Peters. For more information, visit drdanpeters.com.